What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Brandon, and we are back, finally being able to bring you guys another episode of A7 III versus EOS R. Now, you guys had a lot of comments about the first EOS R versus A7 III video that I did with the 50mm 1.2 RF versus the 50mm 1.4 Sigma art lens. So there was a lot of things that you guys were saying, like, oh, you know, did you upgrade to the 1.4 firmware, and oh, the 50mm lens is much bigger, and oh, you know, there was just excuse after excuse that you guys had in order for the EOS R to either lose or why it was so behind the A7 III when it came to focusing. Well, I want to tell you guys a few things first of all before we get to this video. Number one, the EOS R is upgraded to the 1.4 firmware. You got to think I'm stupid to think that I did not upgrade this camera in the last video. This been upgraded, so you can't use that as excuse. Yes, it does have the latest firmware. Nobody's dumb. The second thing is both of these are shot on continuous autofocus. Continuous for the A7 III and servo AF for the EOS R. Third thing is the EOS R is not an eye autofocus in video. It is using the dual pixel autofocus, just like it was last video. I think I did have the eye autofocus on last time, but the eye autofocus is not on. It is just on servo AF dual pixel autofocus with the A7 III just being in continuous. The images that you're going to see out of both of these cameras are both shot in RAW. Not one is JPEG, not one is RAW. Okay, they are both in RAW. So this video, I went through a little bit more grueling process to put these things through the test. Now, both of these cameras are using the 35mm 1.8 on both of their respective bodies. The EOS R is using the 35mm 1.8 macro lens RF, and the A7 III is using the Sony full frame 35mm 1.8. So both of these cameras are using the 35mm. So let's just stop that right there, okay? They're both using 35s, they're both using 1.8, so they should be able to basically focus the same, right? I kind of did understand about the 50mm 1.2 because it is a huge lens and it kind of takes a little bit more to move that glass around, right? So I kind of give you that, all right? Man, the RF lenses are superb. So yes and no. So a few tests that you're going to see here. First of all, we shot about 6 o'clock, 6:30 at nighttime because I wanted to do some kind of like some night comparisons. Also, not too dark outside, just perfect. So the first shots that you're going to see are going to be a little bit darker, and then we waited till the next day to get a little bit more light outside, and I'm just going to run those. I'm not going to show you me changing the bodies and all of that stuff. It kind of took a long time to do that last video, so I'm just going to show you the images. And guys, try to guess, you know, before the A7 III EOS R titles come up, try to guess, pause it and try to guess which one you think is the A7 III or which one you think is the EOS R. Afterwards, you're going to see another video. Tamika did an amazing job where she jumped in and out of frame, and we did some spinning tests, we did some distance tests. So I want you guys to tell me what you think now that both of these bodies have the 35mm 1.8, and then after that we did I showed you basically a file versus file comparison, both raw, with the EOS R and the A7 III at the end, and then my final thoughts. All right, so without further ado, both of these are hands down the same. Let's go. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon, and welcome back to another comparison. So we got the A7 III with the 35mm 1.8 Sony, and we also have the EOS R. Again, this time we're going to be using the 35mm 1.8 RF lens to do some same comparisons, kind of the same way we did them last time. So we're going to shoot them, and then we're going to try to do a little video test to see if the 50mm was any other different, see if we can get some different results out of these cameras. All right, here we go. All right, guys, I'm going to jump in here for just a second. Now what we're going to see is a side-by-side comparison of both video tests on the A7 III and the EOS R, both 35mm 1.8. And I did my best to match the profiles, shutter speed and ISO, just the same, so we can get definitely more of a basic comparison. However, you know, color profiles in each camera just gives it slightly different, but you'll be able to tell the difference. But that has nothing to do with how the pictures or how the cameras both focus on the subject. Now, for this test, unlike the last video, once Kamika jumps out of frame, I gave the cameras both time to focus on the background before she came into the picture. That was another little complaint that people had about the cameras focusing on the background. So I wanted her out of the frame for a while for the cameras to focus on the background, and then as she comes back into the frame, you're going to see how the cameras go on par with each other as they focus back on the subject. Again, 35mm 1.8s. They're both on the latest firmware. Okay, this is the best gruesome test you're going to see with the autofocus on both of these systems. All right, so without further ado, let's get to the video test of the A7 III and the EOS R. Okay, and tell me with this video, Gekido sent me the AT24 vid tripod. This is a tripod with fluid head, metal construction with latching legs. It was very smooth, very sturdy. I had no problem with it, and it held both cameras amazingly well. Definitely want to put the link in the comment section below. Definitely go check out this tripod with fluid head from Gekido, and everything will be there for you. It's an amazing tripod, and for the price point, I don't think you're going to find a better. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and jump over here into Lightroom and do a few comparisons, show you guys a little bit of detail with these two raw files with the Canon EOS R and the Sony A7 III. So first up we have the Canon here on the left. This is the Canon raw file versus the Sony raw file, straight out of camera. So as we look around the picture, we're going to look at some of the sharpness in things in these pictures. So starting with the eyes here, I definitely think that both images did a pretty good job. So let's just take a look around the file and see what we can see. All right, again, we're looking at both raw files on the EOS R and the Sony A7 III, straight out of camera, no editing, no anything. As you look up here by the hair and everything on Tamika's face or what have you, I am getting a little bit more detail out of the Canon than I am out of the Sony. Let's take a look at like the scarf and everything, see if we can see a difference in texture and, you know, material. That's always a good place to draw some conclusions. I think the Sony is doing a really good job with sharpness here. Now we're gonna go scroll down to like the sides and edges of her face here, see if we can see something here. Both are doing a really good job here. Scrolling down. I'm scrolling slow so you guys can see these comparisons for yourself. If you look at the little bumps and everything, I'm seeing that there's a little bit more detail and texture with the Canon than there's the Sony. Just a tad bit, not too much. But then again, I'm starting to see that focus kind of fall away as it gets a little bit softer right here on her nose and face, while the Canon keeps those details. Look at the details right here. Look at the little bumps right here in her face. You know, I can see a little bit more detail and texture in the Canon than I can in the Sony. Look at the lips. As that focus starts to fall away on the Sony, you know, everything becomes a little bit more softer, where the Canon is keeping that texture nice and sharp. And that 35mm 1.8 RF lens. Let's scroll down to the scarf and the jacket, see if we can see any difference in details. Again, that Sony picks up again. As you can see, the button and the rope right here on her jacket is definitely more defined and focused than the Canon is. Even over here by her hand. So yeah, kind of hit and miss with both of them on this one. As I'm looking at the jacket, I mean, that Sony is really just that sharpness is really just taking over right now in that Sony. So yeah, for this picture, I kind of gotta give it to the Sony on this one as far as the sharpness. So let's take a look at another one, see if we can have anything. Let's get a little bit closer picture here. So we got the EOS R raw file on the left, Sony on the right. All right, so let's go ahead and zoom in. All right, we're gonna start at the top. All right, now I'm seeing a little bit fringing, just a tad bit, you know, right here on the edge. But like I said, a little bit more out of focus on the Sony than on the Canon. I'm getting a little bit more sharpness and detail on the Canon. I'm gonna scroll over to the side here on the face. Let's check out the eyes. This is a big one, you know, and Canon is known for that eye autofocus, man. But that Sony really, that Canon is really nailing that focus. All right, and as you can see, as it starts to get just a tad softer on that Sony, where the Canon is just really keeping those details punchy. Look at the bumps. You know, this is really important when you're looking at detail. Look at her face on the Canon versus the Sony. Both raw files, both 35mm 1.8. You know, there's, you know, we're comparing at we're definitely doing a very side-by-side comparison. So there's nothing to really say either one has the advantage. Let's go over here. Let's check out the lips. Canon, again, the Sony is doing a really good job in those lips and those eyes, as they're getting a little bit more defined on the Sony than it is on the Canon here. Going over to the other side of her face. All right, not too big of a difference there. Let's go down to the scarf, some clothing, check out some material. All right, there we go. Not too big of a difference. Both of them are doing a pretty good job there. I think I got a little bit more sharpness in the Canon, in the Sony on the right than I do on the Canon on the left. And you can kind of really definitely tell the difference once you get up in this area of the scarf on the Sony versus this on the Canon. All right, going over here, and definitely a lot more sharper and defined texture on the Sony on the right than on the Canon. So definitely I think I'm gonna have to give this one to the Sony as well as far as sharpness. Let's go with one more picture here, and yeah, let's see here. Let's see, it's a raw file. No, that's a JPEG. Sorry. Okay. Let's go with this one. Let's do one more. All right. There we go. All right, so Canon EOS R raw file on the left and Sony on the right. All right, a little bit more, you know, away from the model. So as we zoom in, we'll probably be able to see more of the picture, you know, than the other ones instead of being so close. So right off the bat, this is a really good comparison. I want you guys to really draw your own conclusions from this. But as we look, let's bring the Canon a little bit more in the picture, the fingers. So starting from this side of the face, you know, those warm tones on the Sony is just, definitely really defined, but I think I'm getting a little bit more sharpness from the Canon here than the Sony. As you look at the little cheek right here on this side of the face, I can see more detail, more texture in the Canon than I can in the Sony. Let's scroll up. We'll come back down, don't worry. All right. Again, I see the Sony falling out of focus faster than the Canon. All right, I get a little bit more detail in just those small hairs. Let's scroll up to the top of the picture. I get more texture, more detail in the Canon on the scarf right here than I do on the Sony. You can definitely tell. I mean, it's kind of almost night and day. Even the hair part right here is more defined on the Canon right now than on the Sony. So let's scroll over. I'm looking at fingers. If you look at the fingers, look at the texture in the fingers. Look how kind of soft it is on the Sony. All right, the scarf is a little bit more defined on the Canon than on the Sony right here also. And it's almost like we're having this thing where if the picture is further back, I'm getting more detail on the Canon than the Sony. But when it gets close up, more close up pictures, it almost feels like I'm getting more detail out of the Sony than I am out of the Canon. So they definitely do a good job on the texture and on the clothing. So yeah, really good comparison. So you guys can kind of draw your own conclusions from that. And yeah, I'll be back with my thoughts. Alright guys, so that concludes the test of the EOS R and the A7 III. Again, this was round 2. I did not use the A7R4. That one is going to be coming up soon. But my final thoughts on both of these cameras using the best comparison lens by far for each one. Both small, both have little minimum glass in it. So focusing and everything is pretty much on the body of the camera. My final thoughts on that. The EOS R looks better out of camera. I'm just going to tell you that hands down. It actually depends on what you prefer. The A7 III and the Sony bodies, as you know, gives a more warmer tone to their pictures. The EOS R and Sony cameras with that color science gives a more cooler tone to their pictures. If you can look at the pictures that I was putting up, anytime you saw a picture with the cooler tone, it was basically the EOS R. And then the A7 III was the one with the little smaller tone. So I mean warmer tone. So that's a no-brainer there. I mean, that's just how they are made by Sony and Canon. When it comes to focusing, as you can see, a few times with the EOS R jumping out of frame again, focusing on the background, giving it time, and then the subject comes back into the frame, it still struggled a little bit. So when people are talking about the focusing of the EOS R, it is not on par with Sony. All right, hands down, it is just not on par with Sony yet. It's doing a better job, but as you can see, I had a 35. Okay, so when it was not picking up, or when she spent and it did not pick up on her for a while, that's the system. As you can see, the Sony really had little to no trouble getting back on that subject when it came in. The Sony system is just more superior to the Canon system when it definitely comes to focusing. As when you talk about reliability, nothing is more reliable than the A7 III or the Sony system. That's just how it is. I think Canon is doing a good job. I think they're getting to that point with a few more firmware updates. They may be able to get on board or get up there. But right now, when you're talking about doing weddings, doing events, you know, making sure people are in frame, making sure people are in focus, continuous autofocus, the Sony system is just more superior. I like the video out of the EOS R also, but I like the reliability in the colors out of the Sony when it comes to a little bit of video. But as far as color science, I mean, Canon still takes that crown. All right, so the pictures, the video, I mean, it's Canon. So it really depends on, like I said, your taste. If you like those cooler tones, you like that more. If you like those tones by Canon, then the EOS R is great. If you like that warmer tone, more reliable camera by Sony, then I would go with the Sony. So Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Comment, like, and subscribe. Come on, guys, let's get this stuff up. Share this video because I had a great time. We had a great time doing this test, and this is all for you guys. All right, holla. See you in the next one.
Peace.